Hello and welcome to another Roaming Henry podcast. Today I'm joined by Amanda Everson and Michael Jonas. So Amanda, please explain who you are and what do you do?
Hello, good afternoon, Henry. My name is Amanda Everson. I am the Business Development Manager here at Legacy International Group. I started a few months ago to support the organisation to develop their commercial aspects of the business. I'm currently focused on creating training and development materials for the menopause in the workplace for women and those around them who need to know what to expect. As part of the work that I'm doing at Legacy, I am looking at the disability confidence development for businesses, but particularly for today, I wanted to introduce a colleague who's helping with developing the Equality Network for Wales. So I thought it'd be really important to introduce you to Michael, who can tell you a little bit more about how he's leading on the Equalities Network.
Hello Michael.
Hi there.
Same question to you again. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi there. My name is Michael Jonas. I'm the project manager for the Equality Network Wales. I'm currently doing my Masters in Equity and Diversity, so this is natural progression for me. The Equality Network is to be a collection of organisations, a network of organisations based on the protected characteristics of the Equality Act.
What is the subject we're tackling today?
We can talk about the Equality Act itself, the basics, then move on to a bit about the Equality Network Wales, and also that is Hate Crime Week, and just a discussion on the relationship between hate crimes and the Equality Act.
Okay, so starting with the Equality Act, what are the details that need to be brought to light here?
So just the very basics then of the Equality Act. The 9 protected characteristics are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. So if you have any of those characteristics or multiple of those characteristics, then you would be protected from discrimination under the Equality Act.
What is exactly discrimination?
Discrimination is something that we all have in our lives. We all use discrimination because it's the identification of differences. So it's a good skill, again, that we all use, and it can be applied to objects, decisions, and people. So we all discriminate throughout our lives. The issue is when we begin to stereotype other people, because stereotypes are negative and they work against people, and they can be used to justify unfair treatment, leading to oppression and marginalization.
Goodness. So how is this issue tackled exactly, or how is it being combated?
Well, because it's rooted into the very core of society, and because it's psychological and sociological, it can lead to prejudice, and therefore the Equality Act works to prevent discrimination, not just in the workplace, but in our everyday lives.
So covering over the 9, the 9 protected,
Characteristics.
characters.
Yeah.
How are each of them protected against this discrimination? How does the Act directly deliver and support?
Well, it's a blanket act, really, in that it aims to, the 9 protected characteristics really cover every aspect of life. So everybody is covered by the Act. And it works to combat discrimination through policies that promote fairness and equality. And so it's a case of prevention through anticipation of what issues people can face at work and in their everyday lives.
How would you identify in terms of those characteristics, knowing now what they are? Which one of those do you feel that relates to you personally?
Well, quite directly to me, it's more perhaps under disability for being someone who has lived with Asperger's syndrome. However, it's an act that I haven't really paid much thought to. It's something I've been mostly ignorant of, and
So on a practical level then, experience-wise, can you give any example or experience that you have had about potential discrimination based on your difficulties?
Well, so far in every work I went, every job I've worked at, I typically keep Asperger's off the actual CV or out of the discussion when having jobs, because I view it as as how it's labelled, a disability. It's not something that's an enhancement or anything. That's how I feel when I'm talking about it. But in all reality, I'm quite happy with who I am. But again, it's
absolutely.
I think it's something that might make an employer put a little note somewhere.
You'll be judged negatively if you declare that you have Asperger's.
Yes,
and you have felt that potentially, and you've chosen to not disclose it.
Yes, in my own life, in my own experience. So I find myself relating to this quite a lot.
And what about
Certainly.
Phil? What sort of experiences, and in particular in relation to those characteristics, have you experienced?
Well, as a black and minority ethnic individual, even in my everyday life, living here in Wales, I haven't experienced any overt racism myself, but this discrimination can also be covert, it can also be unintentional. And just in the way that people relate to you, without using any abusive words or language, just in the way that they relate to you, they can show that they think of you less favourably than they would other people. And that could be in the supermarket, it could be at the gym, it could be anywhere. You're just living your daily life. And that's the point of the Equality Act, is to prevent that kind of discrimination.
And I know from my experience, where I've suffered with mental health conditions and currently going through the menopause, and I have experienced in the workplace how that has been a huge difficulty and challenge, but also the behaviour, and those who might be more in senior roles that should have known better or had the awareness of what to do in terms of their support and their responsibilities. Sadly, that hasn't been the case, and so sometimes you are trying to raise awareness, you're trying to fight the good fight, but sometimes it backfires as well. So it is still something I feel, despite all of the recent campaigns and awareness and role models that we've had, there's still a long way to go from that perspective. So yes, I think that each of us here have had some element of experience in terms of discrimination and hate crime or chosen behaviours to hide some of those characteristics that are us.
Yeah, well, me quite less so. More on my end is just, I'm quirky. But,
and of course, the problem with being a black and minority ethnic individual is that you can't hide it. You can see who I am as soon as you meet me, and unfortunately, it's easy to make assumptions, to go along with stereotypes. When I'm probably nothing like you would think that I am.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Because people, well, through their day-to-day lives, make like glance assessments all the time.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own like preconceived thoughts on different people for like different visual cues.
Or their influences.
Yes. So it's very much. Oh, it's very much a massive issue, and it's very much something that has to change gradually over time. It's a thing I've talked to other people about before, but hopes are through acts like these and just general social acceptance, gradually it will become much more acceptable.
Absolutely, we all make judgments in our lives, but then the difficulty arises in when we begin to treat groups of people negatively.
Yes.
And again, discrimination can be either direct or indirect. It can be by association, or it can be by perception. You don't even need to have a characteristic to be covered by the Equality Act, as long as you're thought to have that characteristic, or people perceive that of you, then you would still be covered.
I think there's been some recent things on media in regards job applications or CVs and about excluding your name, because even if that sounds different, that you would be judged even though people have never met you. And so, they could potentially be missing out on a fantastic person that could do huge benefits in their organisation, but they're being judgmental and discrimination. So I think with next week being Hate Crime Awareness Week, and I think the Welsh Government are organising a campaign for the week, we wanted to be able to maybe look at how we can support that, raise awareness, and demonstrate how we are trying to combat some of those behaviours.
So what's happening in this coming week?
Well, we will start with launching the Equality Network Wales, which...
Tell us about that.
It's a very exciting time to be here in Wales, because Welsh Government is being so progressive with their policy drives, that they've shown that they really do want to make a difference here in Wales, for Wales to be world leaders when it comes to equality. And so to that end, we're launching the Equality Network Wales to try to gather together groups of organisations based on the life protected characteristics of the Equality Act, so that we can all work together to help shape future policy in this country and hopefully all over the world.
Do you know what the outcomes or potential changes that this campaign and this particular week is hoping to achieve on a practical level? How are we going to raise the awareness? How are we going to change some of those perceptions and behaviours? How are we potentially going to look at growing the network and its purpose across Wales? Have you got any particular organisations that you would like to be involved, or people that you'd like to attend this launch event?
Well, we're sending out invitations quite broadly, and hopefully as many as possible. Anyone who is affiliated with equality work under the Life Protected Characteristics is welcome to join, and eventually we would hope that all organisations can come together under our Equality Network Wales umbrella to work together to help shape policy.
What's the network going to do going forward?
What's
So-
the network?
Sorry, what was that?
What's the network going to do moving forward?
Well, again, we're currently in the process of finding partners to work with. Hopefully they can help us to create a charter for the Equality Network that all the organizations will get to have their say on what they want to see included. And it's the main aim is to facilitate that working relationship between all of the different organizations. Eventually, we want to roll out a program of training and education for local authorities, for schools, and for corporate clients also, to work towards a recognized certification in equality and making them more valuable employers.
Mm.
And one of the key things I think that we were looking to develop is, people may have heard of investors in people, but there's also an investors in diversity. So being able to take the lead with those partners in getting organisations to achieve that status and
Yes.
pledge, their commitment to demonstrating that inclusion. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, Henry, were you going to say something?
No, just really confirming what Amanda was saying. So supporting it and getting it more publicly out in the open, from my understanding.
And I think it's important to acknowledge as well that we have just become disability confident leaders. Henry actually led on that piece of work. Do you want to talk about what experience that you've learned in going through that process and achieving that status? And well done you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Well, a lot of it was just checking that the company actually fulfilled this criteria for disability confidence. And really, I wasn't completely alone on it. My co-worker Joel finalised the paperwork and actually pushed it forward to Sarah. But yes, the fact that I was going through this this checklist, the thought that really went through my head was, wouldn't this be standard? Isn't this the same in every line of work? It was more that I was impressed that this wasn't a common thing. But I'm putting it down to me being naive and not being used to like sort of the workplace as it is now. But yes, I think it's quite standard.
Absolutely, and that's one of our aims as well, is to make sure that this sort of thing is standard in the workplace, right across the board. Because discrimination is out there, and again, it's insidious in so many different ways. It's important that we address it at the root cause. And to that end, we're quite excited about the Champions project that we hope to launch in schools. We're still working on the selection processes, but ideally we want to work with children and young people to work out the ways that they're affected by discrimination and equality, making it a co-production with them. And then the Champions project will help to give them something to work towards and allow them to make a real contribution.
Furthering that awareness as usual.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ongoing fight against discrimination.
Well, I found a bit of that interesting. So is it believed that some people are completely unaware that they suffer from discrimination? They just go through life and or they go through roles and they don't get that job, but they just shrug and say, I'm probably unqualified, or they didn't like something about me. Can discrimination be that hard to spot?
Absolutely. It can be very difficult to spot. Again, discrimination can be either, excuse me, it can be either direct or indirect.
I think. Sorry, I think yeah, the direct is what people really focus on, and yeah, they really focus on. Of course, it's hard not to focus on something if someone's directly being discriminatory to you.
Yeah.
But then, there's the minute things or changes in their behaviour that the person discriminating against you is probably not even aware of.
Absolutely, because it can be in the organisational culture. It can be institutionalised. And then people are being discriminated against by policies that aim to treat everybody the same, when having a protected characteristic might give you specific needs or requirements outside of what everybody is normally entitled to. Just as an obvious example of that is Sikhs being given the right not to wear motorcycle helmets, because it would conflict with their headdress, which they wear for religious purposes. So a law saying everybody has to wear the motorcycle helmet is going to affect them more than it's going to affect anybody else. So that sort of one-size-fits-all policy just doesn't work, and organisations need to take that into account when they're forming their policies. And when a conflict is brought to their attention, they need to be able to deal with it in a way that's not just equal, but equitable for the person with the characteristic.
There is a massive range of people. Like under the 9 protected characteristics, there are also subcategories below them. So, like you said, religion, where there are things, policies, and companies need to accommodate for. Would there be, in my mind's eye, there would be like a whole manual detailing what you have to do to avoid violating these characteristics? It sounds very, very daunting.
Absolutely, and it can be initially, but again, the key there is education and training, so that people are aware of diversity issues. Because again, there are 9 different protected characteristics, and most people will fall into one of those characteristics at some point. So it is something that affects everybody, really. And again, the knowledge that not everybody is the same, that people do have differences, and that we should acknowledge those differences rather than ignoring them or pretending that they don't exist. Because they do. We're all different in lots of different ways. And again, through training and education that people might not normally have had, we can hopefully help to shape social awareness so that these issues are at the forefront and not in the background.
And it's also about empowering those people so that they know their rights, what they're entitled to, and that if they see any form of discrimination, that they feel they're able to highlight that in order to make sure that people are changing and improving their behaviours and understanding, but it's the ecosystem around them as well. So if we can go out there and get the people who are the experts in their field around those characteristics to work with us, to give that core knowledge, to share that around organisations and communities, and to inform individuals where they may relate to some of the characteristics, so they're aware of their own ability to drive some of that awareness, and know what their rights are. So I just think, between us all, we're just trying to lead this band of merry crusaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's because we've experienced it ourselves, because we see it, because we know it's there in history as well as media, and so if somebody's got to do something, and there's never enough. So even if it's looking at, when we were talking about the schools, young people, if we can influence them at that younger age, so that it doesn't become an issue, it isn't something that is a discriminatory belief or activity or act, then hopefully we'll talk ourselves out of a job. That would be good.
In the long run, that would be the ultimate aim, to get rid of discrimination entirely. But it will always be there. It's just a matter of limiting it, anticipating it, and addressing it when it does come up. And just as another quick example, there are areas in Wales where there are no ethnic minorities at all. And I've quite frequently been told, more than you would expect, that I'm the first black person that they've ever spoken to. And people have often come across as surprised even, that I'm so nice and approachable, I guess, because they had this image in their mind that when they finally met a black person, it wouldn't be like that they might be intimidated or some such. But then they've often been quite pleasant experiences. I'm glad to disappoint your expectations. But then there were the times when people will have those impressions, they'll have those stereotypes, but they won't say anything. They won't try to redress them by speaking to me or trying to meet. They'll just go away with those same preconceptions of what I'm like, and that's always a shame. So it is definitely a good thing to be able to be in a position where we can challenge those kinds of stereotypes, and just have people be more aware of diversity issues.
And I wanted to sort of follow on with that, in the sense that my daughter's partner is Bangladeshi. She's White Valley, Wales, and the intention is, whilst he finishes his university degree, currently is from London, but suggesting maybe they come and live with us, because it will help them with their foundations of getting together and building up their own home, but having to travel into the city where he feels more comfortable, because he feels he sticks out like a sore thumb in where we live, in the valleys. And I've said absolutely not. He's an beautiful person, and everyone he's met so far when he's visited absolutely love him, but he still feels different. And I said, well, no, you're a human, you're a nice guy. And you love my daughter, and you treat her like a princess that she should be. But
Definitely.
the thing for me is, I want him to feel comfortable. I want him to feel not different in that sense. Celebrate who he is in some respects, but also to change. If he can move from the City of London to the valleys of Wales and think that it's absolutely fabulous and I feel at home, that would be an absolute joy. So it's what do we do with those individuals
yes.
who feel that way too?
And it's really how people just treat each other to make you feel welcomed and not having that, like as you said, people being surprised when they talk to you, Michael, and it's just to be expected, because everyone is the same to their degrees, but it's also nice being so varied as we are now. Welsh, black, white, and any
short, fat,
I mean, I remember when I was walking in Cardiff late night after a comedy club, and some not Irish, oh my gosh, a group of Welsh guys walked past, and they said, "Oh, I hope you're having a good night." And I was smiling and said, "Yeah," and they heard my accent.
And English, aren't they? So there you go. That's a perfect example, isn't it?
So they just booed me as they were climbing into the back of a taxi. So, but no, yeah, it's keeping it to that where it's not that you feel uncomfortable for who you are.
Offended.
No, but it's also being proud of who you are as well, which I think is quite important, and it's quite nice to have these differences you can play on.
So
absolutely, and even just following on from where Mandy, you were saying that ideally we would talk ourselves out of the job. What would be nice is if a day could come where we can move from talking about discrimination to really focusing on encouraging the positive aspects of diversity. Something that we want to start doing now, but it would be good if that was all we had to do. We didn't have to worry about discrimination. And then also talking about the way that people treat each other. It is hate crime awareness week. And that is a hate crime is in a way the ultimate negative expression of the way that we treat each other, of how we think about these stereotypes, and do either of you have any hate crime experience?
Well, I've heard stories from friends, but it's essentially stemmed to racial slurs, and it hasn't gone much further than that. But again, it equally could go. Sorry, it's still very scary and just scary that people think it's okay to say things like that and put someone in such a dangerous spot.
I think it's what's considered the norm and acceptable. I think there's a bit of what's the word? Complacency, in a sense, that if you're from the valleys, or if you're of an ethnic background, or if you're disabled, and that they can have a banter and they kind of try to minimise the impact that could really actually have on a person, depending on how many times they keep feeling a lesser person. I think that's the key thing here, is knowing when hate crime or discrimination, in whatever form and whatever degree, is still that, and getting people to accept and acknowledge, no, that's not appropriate. You might think it's funny, or they don't seem to have a negative reaction to it, but that doesn't mean it's right.
No, it's really showing that common decency amongst people, where I believe where people would be, where we would be racist, would really stem from them just being an unpleasant person in most regards. Like there are when people are just simply uneducated, or they had bad experience, or they have these preconceptions.
And copying to fit in, is because that's what their mates think, or their father says.
Yes,
or,
yes.
Those older generations that might not be politically correct.
It can stem from that environment, and the whole purpose of this act, the week coming up, and the champions, is just to make that environment smaller and smaller and smaller until it fades.
Yes.
It, but well, it's not. It's a very good way of going. Well, I think it's a very good way of going about it because again, it just makes that more of to be someone with like racist opinions or think it's all right to say discriminatory things, discriminant.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. It's very much showing how that's just unacceptable for how we should behave to each other.
And you shouldn't feel uncomfortable of declaring that you have Asperger's. You shouldn't feel discriminated against in terms of the workplace or being able to acknowledge if something is becoming uncomfortable and that you're having some sort of challenge and you need support. And therefore, some people think, I can help you with that, so they know what to do in those circumstances too. So it's not just about raising awareness of what a discrimination is, but also how do you support somebody, because we are all unique and individual and diverse and fabulous. So how can we make sure that we can obviously make everybody else constantly feel?
Sure, fabulousness.
Yes, be fabulous.
So sorry to get political, sorry, but ever since the Brexit vote, there's been a huge increase in incidents of hate crime, mostly against ethnic minorities, and again there it's mostly targeted towards Muslims or people who are perceived to be Muslim. But there has also been a correlating increase in attacks against the LGBT community. And I suspect that once society is in a position where people feel that it is okay to speak out and make sort of hurtful, hateful comments, you know, why don't you go home, etc., I'm very big from, then you're going to feel that you can speak out on all of your prejudices. And I think that's what we're seeing happening here, why there has also been an increase in hate crimes generally, not just against Muslims, not just against Eastern Europeans, but against everybody, against all the protected characteristics. And so that's something that we have to guard against, is that prejudice in one area will definitely lead to the expression of prejudice right across the board, and it's another reason, another motivation for all of these different organizations to work together to help to combat this new social phenomenon of, just speaking out and saying what's on your mind.
Yes. Well, I quite heavily support this because it's like this is something that is leaning in on my pastime, which is YouTube or the internet, and I heavily agree with this because there have been like a lot more, again, with the political tension from Brexit, and then there's this tension from both left and right, and what I think is happening is there are like a lot of videos you can watch where the left, extreme, like radical left could make a poorly thought argument, or they act in a very reprehensible way, and what happens is, oh, they must represent left. The furthest must represent that, and I think it's the same. But then it goes to the right. Oh, they must represent the right. And when you said people can hear these, people when they can say one opinion, they feel like they can throw out other really offensive and controversial opinions because, well, I broke the vase. May as well keep going with it. And I think
it's being seen increasingly as being socially acceptable to do that.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I think it's more on part to when you listen to both sides of political wings and you listen to those speakers and their opinions and what they believe, you must keep a really open mind, as in you can always have points where you're convinced of the other side, and that despite the fact you might hold these beliefs, you need to respect others for having their own. And that's where I think should be more popular than either left or right.
Oh, good luck with that. Yeah, but that says you're right in a way that even at the top of those who are supposed to be leading by example are demonstrating some of their behaviours are inappropriate. And they could be. So we have a big challenge, but we like a challenge.
It wouldn't be fun otherwise.
No, exactly, especially here at Legacy. And hopefully that next week, using National Hate Crime Awareness Campaign, will bring to the forefront and raise awareness of what we're trying to do to support that, both in the Equalities Network and other activities the organisation does, such as disability awareness, menopause awareness, etc. So I think that hopefully it'll be a fantastic launch for the organisation, for the campaign, for the Equalities Network, and I'm really excited for Michael to lead us on that charge.
As am I.
Definitely, can't wait to get started.
It's really exciting. Just checking, we've covered, there are no projects that still need to be covered.
I think just to let people know in regards to this launch event on Monday the 14th, it's at our Legacy offices in Merthyr between 10 a.m. and 12 midday. So if anyone is interested in participating in that event and helping to shape things going forward, that we've got an Eventbrite invitation link which we can post up on our social media sites. So that's Legacy International Group. And if they can search for us, if they haven't already joined us, then hopefully we'll look forward to seeing more people there and being part of our gang.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Amanda and Michael, for having this discussion with me.
High five.
Thanks for having us. Yes.
Can't do it through the screen, Amanda. I'm sorry. And thank you all to thank you to you all listening. Ta-ra!
Thank you to Roman Henry. Don't miss it.
Thanks again, guys.
Okay, and